What is going on, Kearney Power fans? So we're bringing you a little bit different of a video today. It's not a training video, not a food video. I'm here to talk about one of the most common questions that I get, and that is what it takes to be a strongman at this level when you're small. I get messages constantly from people on social media asking me what they need to do to compete in strongman because they're only 5'10" or they're only 5'8". They only weigh this amount. I just would like to give a little bit of my knowledge and my career path to what it took to get me to this level. I started the sport back when I was 17 years old in 2009, and I was a smaller guy. I was only weighing about 200 pounds at the time. And I did my first competition in the backyard of somebody when I found out there was a local contest, and I absolutely fell in love with the sport. I didn't do well, but I loved it. And I think from there, when I kind of dove more into the sport after I went to college and learning more about what it takes to be a strongman athlete, one of the first things I did was I attempted to surround myself with people that were stronger than me and knew more about the sport. And they didn't necessarily need to be that close to me. For instance, I found out Derek Poundstone was training down in Connecticut, and it was about a 90-minute drive to get to his gym. So I would make it a point to drive down to his gym at least once a month, sometimes more often, to train with him and his crew that he had, because everybody there knew more about strongman. They had the experience, and they could help me in my journey to getting better at the sport. I found a strongman gym that wasn't too far from my college, but it was still a little over 30 minutes from my school. But I would go there every single weekend to train strongman events and get better. And another thing that I did was I competed a lot. And that's one thing that has really kind of fallen off over the past couple years, especially here in the U.S., is people get a little bit too tied up in training specifically for one contest. Now, specificity is important in the sport of strongman because you don't want to get hurt, but to an extent, you just need to compete. We see now there are some competitions announcing events 1 year in advance before the contest, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because if you train 1 year for one contest, it doesn't make you a good strongman athlete. It makes you really good at 5 events. And after that event is over, where the heck do you go? So I don't like seeing people train specifically for one contest. When I was starting in the first few years of me beginning this sport, I was competing between 8 and 12 times a year. If there was a contest within a 5-hour driving distance of me, I was going to compete at it. And that got me, one, it got me really good at competing, really good at facing adversity, but it also got me really good at a bunch of different events that I otherwise wouldn't be training because the gym might not have the equipment, or I might just not want to do it. But regardless of the events, I signed up and I competed. Like I said before, I wasn't good at the sport of strongman initially. When I began, I took last place in my first 8 competitions. And from that moment on, when I started and I realized I wasn't that good, I began setting small goals along my entire career that I knew I could achieve in order to keep propelling me to the next level. So what that meant was, okay, after the 3rd or 4th contest when I kept taking last place, my first goal was don't take last place. After that, my next goal was don't zero an event at a contest. So my 9th contest, I didn't take last place. So after that, like I said, my next goal was don't zero an event. Contest 14, I didn't zero an event. After that, it was let's make the podium. So it was all these small goals that were progressing on top of each other, and they were like stepping stones, really to kind of progress me to a bigger level of the sport. And I just kind of stayed on that path. 2012 was the first year that I realized that I could be pretty good and take it to the next level in becoming a pro. 2013, I earned my pro card in the 105 or the 231 class. Was decently successful in that division. I took second place at America's Strongest Man 2014 and 2015. I still hold the world record actually in the log press in that weight class. And 2016 got the opportunity to represent the USA at 105 kilo World's Strongest Man. And that contest was kind of my aha moment where I realized that cutting weight wasn't really worth it anymore. I was walking around at about 255 pounds or about 117 kilos. And I was cutting down to 231 or 105. And it was really, really difficult that year. World's Strongest Man for the 105s were in Belfast, Northern Ireland. It was my first time competing internationally while cutting weight. And I really had a horrible cut. I couldn't gain weight on my refeed. I just really didn't perform that well. A couple months prior to that, I got the invite to compete at the Log Press World Championships in Lithuania that was hosted by Zadrunas, and surprisingly won that contest. I went in with no expectations. I was only weighing about 246 pounds ish, so about 112 kilos, and I won the contest with a 202.5 kilo log press, so about 445, and that was kind of my moment where I realized that I could do well potentially on a bigger scale in the heavyweight division. So after World's Strongest Man 105 kilo in 2016, I made the decision to jump up to heavyweights, and that's in 2017 where I went to New York Strongest Man and ended up winning and got my qualification to the Arnold South Africa. Hugely surprised, an exciting moment for me, realizing I was going to get my shot at a pro show. And then a few weeks after that contest, I got the call from World's Strongest Man as a wild card invite to World's Strongest Man that year, which again was a huge surprise. It was never my goal to get to that level when I initially started the sport. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people that are, at a size disadvantage like myself, you have to realize that getting into the sport of strongman, you have everything working against you when you're under 6 feet tall and you don't have the frame to put on massive size. So the things that you really need to focus on are setting those short-term attainable goals that you know you can hit, and that's going to keep you on a path to succeed. If you get into the sport and you automatically think, I want to be at World's Strongest Man, I want to be one of the best, it's really easy to lose sight of that big goal and kind of go off course, and things happen, injuries happen, competitions go sucky, and you end up not achieving what you set out to do. So setting those short-term goals that you know you can achieve is really, really important to progressing you along in the sport of strongman. So I think one of the coolest parts about getting to this level in the sport while being this size, now again, when I compete typically, my height doesn't change, so I'm like 5'9", 5'10", depending on who's measuring and depending on how tall the mohawk is that day. And then my weight is typically around 280 to 285 pounds. What it really kind of puts into perspective is that, it was once said that pound for pound, I'm probably the strongest man on the planet, which is pretty freaking cool to think of, considering when you look at, the weights that I'm lifting in comparison to the guys that are so big. We take the deadlift, for example. My best deadlift is 440 kilos or 971 pounds, and I did that at a body weight of 280 pounds, which puts it at about 3.5 times body weight. Not too shabby. Now, Thor, he has the deadlift world record at 1,104 pounds, 501 kilos. At that point, he weighed 450 pounds, so just upwards of 202-ish kilos, 205 kilos. That's about 2.5 times body weight. So when you do the math, pound for pound, I am, the strongest person competing at this level. And, kind of doing it in a way that people didn't think were possible. My nutrition coach, Stan Efferding, it's really cool to talk to him because one of the coolest moments for me was meeting him at World's Strongest Man this past year, almost a year ago now. And he would watch me compete and could never understand why and how I was doing the things I was doing. Joe Rogan asked me, how did I get this strong? And my answer was because I'm a stubborn bitch. And I don't accept failure, and I think that's one of the coolest things about it is when I set all these goals throughout my entire career, I never let failure be one of those goals, or I never accepted failure, and it never got me down. It never disheartened me. It always just motivated me to push harder for that goal. And when Stan realized I was working with Derek Poundstone as my coach, it kind of all clicked for him because Derek had that same mentality, and that's something that I've carried through my entire career, is being an underdog, being smaller, and people never really took me as a serious contender at these competitions. I won Giants Live North America back in 2017. pretty handedly to qualify for World's Strongest Man 2018. 2017, 2018, I didn't have good performances at World's Strongest Man, and I think a lot of people were looking at me just as like another place filler at World's Strongest Man. Fortunately, 2019, I had one of my best competitive years ever, winning the Arnold Australia in March, breaking the American log press record, and then just narrowly missing the finals at World's Strongest Man. I think people finally realized I kind of turned heads a little bit, and people realized that I can actually really compete with these big guys. So it's pretty cool to think that a little guy from Connecticut that was only weighing 200 pounds when he was 17 years old is now arguably the strongest man in the world. Another thing is, you have to be ready to work harder than anybody else. That's one thing that I kind of pride myself on. And, it comes in two ways. It's obviously physical preparation and working hard in the gym, but it's also mentally preparing and studying the sport of strongman, watching how guys like Brian and Thor, Matthias, Martins, and all the top guys, how they perform these events and what you need to do as a smaller athlete to adapt it to work in your favor. Obviously, like, I don't have, I have decently good static strength, but like the log press, I use a split jerk technique as opposed to a push press, where when you have a large amount of mass behind you, you can move more mass. That's one of the things. At a certain point, mass moves mass. So being smaller, you have to change your technique in these events to work for you in order to achieve success at a higher level against these big guys. And it isn't easy, and it really does get frustrating. I look back to World's Strongest Man this past year with the Stone Over Bar event, going against my best friend Luke Stoltman, and, he's 6'5", I'm 5'10", and when you're loading a stone over a bar, it takes that much more energy to lift it that much higher to get over the bar as opposed to my competitor. But again, you kind of just have to roll with the punches and realize that's part of the sport of strongman. And I think once you've set those things up with training around people that are stronger and smarter than you in the sport of strongman, you set those short-term goals that you can succeed. You're ready to work your ass off in the gym and become a great student of the sport of strongman. It really does set you up on a path to success in achieving greatness in a sport. This is something that I never thought I would be doing. I never thought that I'd be sitting here in my living room making YouTube videos, talking to people who look up to me in trying to get into the sport of strongman. So it's surreal to me, because when I started this sport almost 11 years ago, it was just a fun backyard competition that I had went to that I thought would be fun because I saw some guys doing it on TV and I had the chance to do it myself. But I'm fortunate enough that I kind of dove right in head first to the sport, met some amazing people along the way, and have progressed to a level that really is, kind of beyond belief, really, for me, which has been the most exciting part of this journey. And to be able to, sit here and give my knowledge to you all about how to get to this level when you are, vertically challenged, per se, in the world of strongman is really something exciting for me. So that's kind of my story. That's kind of how I got to where I am, what it took for me to get to this level of strongman. It certainly wasn't easy. I had a lot of people doubting me. I had a lot of people telling me I should just not bother because I'm too small. I'll never be able to get the strength that these guys are doing at this, at this level of the sport. And all along, I just used that as motivation to really just propel my career, get stronger, work harder in the gym, and just not listen to people that were doubting me, because I knew there was something else in me that I could achieve. And obviously, I have proven that, and I still have goals. That tactic that I talked about earlier of setting those goals incrementally to, kind of achieve greatness is something I still hold true to today. I talked last year that my goal was to make the top 10 at World's Strongest Man. I just missed making the final, so that is still my goal now because I haven't achieved that. My goal was to make top 5 at the Arnold. I take 6th place, so that is still my goal leading into the Arnold for next year. And, my mindset has never changed since starting this sport, almost 11 years ago, which is crazy to think about. So if you have any other questions, if you want to learn more about what it took for me to get here, if you want more description on something that I talked about, feel free to leave comments down below. Obviously, check out my sponsors. As always, they're the ones that are helping bring you this amazing content to you every single week. Share the video, subscribe to the channel. We love you all. Thank you so much for the support, and until next time, peace out.